Good evening, can you hear us?
Yes.
Erica, this is Claudia, the Spanish interpreter, and Isidra. We can hear you fine. I'm trying to do a mic check. Can you hear the interpreter okay?
Yes. Perfect.
Hi, Erica.
Hi, good evening. We can hear you just well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, he's back there. For those of you who have just joined us after closed session, welcome to this hybrid regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Providing translation this evening is Dira Menkos and Claudia Lindgren. I would like to allow the translators an opportunity to explain how to use the interpreting feature on Zoom.
Yes, good evening, everyone. In just a few minutes or a short minute, you're going to see a globe sign at the bottom of your screen. You can go ahead and click on that icon, and you can choose if you want to hear whatever is being said in English. If someone's speaking in Spanish, you can do that, or vice versa. And that way you can hear the interpretation. If someone speaks in Spanish, the interpreter will be speaking in English. Buenas tardes a todos. Los servicios de interpretación en español van a estar disponibles de una manera simultánea para esta junta. Si se pueden fijar en la parte inferior de su pantalla, en medio van a ver un globo terráqueo o un símbolo de mundo. A favor de hacer un clic y seleccionar el español. Si si están teniendo acceso a esta junta por medio de su celular, también en la parte superior a mano derecha, ustedes van a ver 3 puntos. Elijan la opción que dice más o more. Y de nuevo, va a ser la misma selección. Elijan el idioma en español. Muchas gracias. Estamos a sus órdenes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am Lisa Pelosi, Board President, and I would like to introduce my fellow trustees this evening, Julio Olguin, Jeannie Kerr, Maria Haug, and Laura Simon. I would also like to introduce our district staff, our Superintendent, Mr. Ruben Aurelio, Chief Academic and Human Resources Officer, Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official, Mrs. Andy Stubbs, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board, Ms. Erica Madrigal, and our Director of IT, Mr. Derek Machado. Additional district and site administrators are joining us in the audience tonight. Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Mrs. Mary Allen, and Santolina High School Principal, Mr. Benjamin Cinto. We are delighted that you are viewing in person, on Zoom, television channel 27, or on our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting will also be available on our website at www.santolinaunified.org. In connection with items 4A and 4B on the agenda, the board received information and provided staff with direction. If now you would join me in a flag salute, please stand.
Excuse me, we don't have the interpretation channel on yet. If you could activate that.
Yes, that will be on in just 1 second.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Okay. Pledge allegiance. Okay, we're going to move on to item 6A. This is public comments at our board meeting. These are for items, comments that relate to items not on tonight's agenda. So at this point, I will ask if there's anyone present who would like to publicly comment on items not on the agenda.
Thank you. Brandon Farrell, Athletic Director. I want to express my gratitude to the Santolina Hospital Foundation and Ms. Stubbs, Mr. Cinto, and anybody else behind the scenes. Noemi Jimenez, especially for coordinating 2 days of sports physicals at the high school on Tuesday and Wednesday. I think that's the days, yeah. Very much needed. I would like to see this process continue if we can, if Santolina Hospital Foundation would be willing to do so in the spring, where we have a lot of kids that need physicals. We had one student yesterday get her physical, and because of that, she rejoined the cheer team because she was having a difficult time getting to where she was able to get a physical under her insurance. So she ended up having to quit and then come back because she was able to get that physical, which is great. More kids are involved. So I want to thank the Santolina Hospital Foundation, and hopefully that will continue.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who wishes to publicly comment on items not on the agenda? Ms. Madrigal, do we have any Zoom participants? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're now going to move on to 7A, the administration of the oath of the office. And this is for our new student representative joining us this evening. Ms. Carolyn Wagner is here. So what we're going to do, Carolyn, is we're going to make this official, and we're going to stand up here and we're going to do the oath. We can, do photos with your family and all that kind of great stuff. Great. Mr. Aurelia, would you like to say anything prior to?
I'm just very excited to be working with Carolyn this year. She's an exceptional student and has a lot of great ideas, and it's going to be a wonderful year.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Sorry, that was a mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations. Our official trustees, and Mr. Rulli, let's perhaps, we'll do a photo. You can blow it, you can get like a big poster size for your room. I'm sure that's just
Oh, you just send it? Yeah.
I got to tweet it out. We have one with you too. Or for her.
Go Saints.
That's right. 1, 2, and 3.
Mom, Dad, you want to have a photo?
No, no. Come on, Craig.
Yes, I will. Mr. Cinto, you're on that as well?
I got it.
Okay,
Got it.
all right.
I need Twitter material.
You're always good about that. You go with him first, and then I'll go.
1, 2, and 3.
Okay, now here my turn. 1, 2, 3. Good. Okay. It is too warm. Okay. Okay. Carolyn, we're really excited to have you. I hope your school year's off to a good start. And we're here to answer questions for you and support you any way we can. Okay, we're going to move on to items 8, which is communications, and we're going to start with the superintendent's report. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Thank you. And it's coming up on the screen. Thank you, Erica. So good evening, everyone. Good evening, President Pelosi, trustees, Carolyn, community. So I'd like to start off some short slides just to capture the last 2 weeks. Some bulleted points there you can see, a reflection of the start of the school year, just a reminder of the safety, COVID safety mitigation we have prepared for the year, a bit of an update on student enrollment for this evening, specifically after our last special board meeting. It's good to see where our numbers are. And then just some of my next steps as I'm coming in as the new superintendent, and then a reminder that we do have a school board and executive cabinet retreat on Monday, and then some upcoming events. We'll keep it brief this evening. So reflecting on the first 2 weeks of school, I know it's only 7 days in, but we'll count it as 2 weeks. It was fantastic. We started off the beginning of last week with our all-staff welcome, and it was really an amazing event. We used the Performing Arts Center. Every employee in our district was there. The highlight, I will say, of the event was our student panel. So we were on stage. I got to interview 3 seniors and really speak to their experience as being students in St. Helena. All varied student experiences from primary on up. And I think that was just a wonderful way to set a tone for our district. The motivation, they called out some of our employees by name. I think there were some tears in the audience. Really joyful, happy event. And really just got us going in the right direction to kick off the year. I was able to visit every single school the first day. I know it's a trek to get to 4 of them, but I did visit all 4, starting off with the high school and their high school pep rally, which was fantastic. The school spirit from day one is very noticeable. And I actually, earlier this week, I attended the girls' volleyball game at American Canyon. It was one of the hottest days, and it was very warm in that gym. And our girls really put a great effort into their first game of the year. And then we had a wonderful end-of-week celebration with the staff at Harvest Inn, one of our neighbors here and partners. They've been really wonderful and allowing us to use their venue. And yeah, welcoming our families at St. Helena. So next slide, please. So just a quick reminder, we still are going to be offering weekly rapid testing for COVID. That's on Mondays at RLS right after school and Thursdays at the primary school. And we also still have a number of COVID antigen tests available for take-home as well as needed. We do know that there are still cases out there, and so we're really asking our families to be vigilant. If students are symptomatic, make sure they get tested and stay home if they're ill. We also are preparing, doing a lot around safety, not just COVID safety. We have an active shooter training in partnership with our local authorities on Saturday, and that'll be at RLS. So if you're in the community and you hear sirens, don't be alarmed. It is part of the drill. Quick update on our enrollment. I believe this is as of maybe even this morning. You can see on the far right column, we are currently at 1,125. The board did increase the enrollment caps. We talked about there was 34 students that were on the wait list. As you can see, we did not capture all 34, but we did get a few of them who joined us. So we're at 1,125 currently. Next slide, please. So this is really important. As I'm coming in as the new superintendent, this is just a list of some of the groups I've already met with, doing a listening tour, really asking them what works well in St. Helena, what do they love about St. Helena, and what are some of our challenges and areas we need to focus on. And so this has been fantastic. Like you see, the list is a rich list of different educational partners, our employees, as well as community-based groups. The next slide are some of the upcoming groups that I'll continue to meet with. And as I am meeting with these groups, I am generating, for me personally, data. This is a data collection opportunity to really get a sense of where our focus, where our priorities need to be shifted to, if they need shifting, and where my attention should be taken. So after I do these listening tours and we assess what we do well, my ultimate goal is to provide you all a report on sort of the findings of these listening tours, and that's going to really provide us with some recommendations as we move forward. On Monday, the school board and the executive cabinet will hold a retreat, and these are some of the topics we're going to be covering. We're going to do some team building since we don't get to spend much time together. We are going to discuss how do we increase our community engagement. really get clear about communication, both board to superintendent, superintendent to community, and cabinet as well. Really get very focused on those things, as well as setting some clear board expectations. And then we're going to spend a big part of the day really talking about the superintendent goals and the evaluation process. Lastly, these are just a list of upcoming events that are varied throughout some of our schools. We've listed the back to school night events that are coming up, as well as an opportunity for Spanish-speaking parents at the primary school, which it doesn't say there, but I believe it's at the primary school at 8 a.m. in the barn. So we hope those families do stick around and come and meet with the parents and teachers. And then we do have on the 31st of August at RLS the parent equity event, and that's at 5:30 p.m. So hopefully people can make those events. And that's the report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aurelio. Okay, now item 8B, the Santolina Teachers Association report to the board. Mr. Brandon Farrell, please.
All right. My report is very positive as well. We had a all membership meeting on the first day, or the first teacher work day professional development day that we came back. We kept it pretty short and wanted to focus on the positive parts of the school year, which look much more like the 2019 beginning and before, which has been well received by all of our teachers. I did hear in my couple times around the sites yesterday, some of the teachers, forgot some of the different things that we had to do when we were teaching under a regular school year format, that we were kind of not pushing aside, but not required to do in COVID. So that was interesting to hear. I think some of the teachers are very happy about the attitudes and the energy from the students. I know the middle school staff has expressed great appreciation for the change in schedule. I know they've gone through a couple of block days already, and that has been well received by the students. And it's a nice thing to hear. I know at the elementary school, some of the room changes actually have been very well received as well, since I last saw them in the spring. They're very happy with the pod and how that's developed. Thank you, Mr. Heller, and then and Ms. Stubbs on that. So we're moving in a good direction. I think this school year has started off really well. I think we're communicating really well, and I look forward to my next report where I can get a little bit more nuts and bolts about what's going on with all of our teaching staffs and teaching groups.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. Items 8D and E are the high school principals report to the board and the RLS principals report to the board. As always, they're super informative. We love to have them, so thank you so much for putting that together for us. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Item 9. The consent agenda contains routine items judged as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda, the item will be considered under discussion action items. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Were there any written comments submitted by members of the public?
No.
Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
No.
No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, so now we're going to go on to item 10A, the Inter-District Attendance District of Choice Program Update. Mr. Aurelio, please.
Wonderful. So we've provided a written report here, just an update on the District of Choice. Really just want to inform our families that we are in continued communication with the Department of Ed I have a contact there and asking them to provide us more direction on the future of district of choice, as well as any language that might be written protecting our families who are already with us so that they can remain. And I'm waiting to hear back from them. They did mention that if we have families who are concerned around the district of choice, that they should be reaching out to Senator Dodd, that the Senate is potentially going to take up looking at the language within DOC. So there is an opportunity to reach out to the senator for our area.
Thank you. Is there anyone present or participating via Zoom who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? No? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Item 10B is the approval of Resolution 22-7, the Hispanic Heritage Month 2022. Mr. Aurelio. Oh, is that actually? Yes, sorry. Yes.
I think we're going to turn this over
Yes.
to Vice President Olguin,
We
who
are.
is going to read the resolution for us.
Thank you. I forgot to click forward here.
Santolina Unified School District Resolution 22-7, recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month, September 2022. Whereas the United States commemorates the heritage and culture of all Americans whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America, and whereas beginning on September 15th, 2022, and ending October 15th, 2022, the United States celebrates National Hispanic Heritage Month as enacted in Public Law 100-402 on August 17th, 1988. Whereas with this year's theme, Unidos, Inclusivity for a Stronger Nation, invites us to celebrate Hispanic heritage and reflect on how great our tomorrow can be if we hold on to resilience and hope. And whereas Hispanic Americans have contributed significantly to the economic, cultural, and political development of the Santolina Unified community, and whereas the student body of the Santolina Unified School District is composed of 53% Hispanic American students, and whereas Hispanic American classified staff support and enrich all students' learning, and whereas Hispanic American teachers distinguish themselves as educators in the Santolina Unified School District classrooms, and whereas Hispanic American administrators lead their schools with vision, and whereas Hispanic American school board members lead with distinction, and whereas all citizens will benefit from an accurate portrayal of Hispanic heritage and culture, and whereas research findings suggest that presenting Hispanic American culture, history, and perspective in the classroom promotes academic success for Hispanic American students. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Santolina Unified School District Governing Board proclaims September 15th, 2022 through October 15th, 2022 Hispanic Heritage Month, and encourages schools, staff, and students to honor the historic contributions of Hispanics through interactive classroom lesson plans, guest speakers, and cultural celebrations.
Thank you. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-07 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Carolyn, would you like to cast a vote? Okay, great.
Aye.
Great. Is there a second? Second, is it?
I'll second.
Okay, great, thank you. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Simon? Aye. Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr? Aye. Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, item 10C is the review of the governing board annual self-assessment for the 22-23 year. Attached, Erica, if you want to perhaps bring that up for us as well. I know we can all pull it up too. I know, Trustee Simon, this was your first time participating in an evaluation, so I hope that you found it to be straightforward and easy to participate in. I think we are in the very fortunate position, as we have been, to where we we scored well. Let's put it, but I think just for the sake of your sake in helping to understand, answering any questions, I thought it might be helpful for us to just look at that. And if there was, a couple of items here that were perhaps somebody wrote not sure, like that maybe we would just flush those few items out a little bit. Because sometimes it's just a semantics thing as we do this, that it's the way you read the question and you kind of wish you had an opportunity to put in a little more information in your answer, but really you're filling in the bubble, for lack of a better term, right? So I thought we maybe just start there, unless there's some questions you would like to ask at the start, if anybody would like to ask any questions about the process of the evaluation. No? Okay. So we had on item 10, there was the board gives direction to the superintendent only at board meetings. So we had one that said not sure. Now, of course, doesn't matter who put not sure or not. It's just if we wanted to talk that out a little bit or get clarification about that. I mean, realistically, this is the only place that we give direction to the superintendent because we have to all five be present to do so. So I don't know if there was any confusion about that, if there was just does anybody have any comment or need clarification further on that? Because really this is, again, the only place we would give direction to the superintendent.
I know that it might have been me,
Okay.
because sometimes there are situations where the superintendent may contact the president of the board on an urgent matter that has to be decided.
Correct.
And because I was president for 2 years, and during COVID, there were instances where we had that occur.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make that distinction, that is not really giving direction to the superintendent. It's more of like a conversation between the board president and the superintendent to maybe come to an understanding.
Okay.
And that's maybe getting too much into, I don't know, how it actually operates. And I just wanted to bring that up, that's not maybe giving direction, but there are instances when the superintendent speaks to the board president.
Correct.
Before he can talk to everyone else, because something has to be done right then.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Everybody feel comfortable with that? Okay. Mr. Aurelio, anything you wanted to add in? Okay.
And hopefully we won't have to deal with COVID again, and that won't be an
Right.
issue in the future.
Exactly. Now, let's knock on wood on that. So, okay. And then the other item was number 17 under board culture. Board members usually discuss questions and agenda items with the superintendent prior to the board meeting. It seems, we had two, almost always too often, and one not sure. And maybe that answer could be indicative of the fact that because we may meet individually with the superintendent, we don't know what each other may be asking of our superintendent in preparation for a meeting, for understanding an issue that we're going to be discussing or voting on. So my feeling is that's just probably where the not sure lies, because Trustee Simon won't know what I ask in my meeting. I won't know what she'll ask in her meeting, kind of thing. But I do know that we have the accessibility is there to meet with the superintendent, to email the superintendent, to get clarification prior to even the agenda coming out. We can ask agenda questions, and they can get posted to the agenda. That's usually something that, will get asked in return. Do you want these questions posted on the agenda? Yes or no, you can do that. Usually that's beneficial because maybe it's a question that somebody else had as well, or maybe it's a question another trustees didn't think of. So it's usually pretty good to have those questions attached to the agenda. But I do think that accessibility is not an obstacle. It's just whether or not all trustees want to follow that process, if you will. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so let's see. And then same thing for number 21, all board members receive the same information. I would say, to Maria's point that she just perhaps made, that there, if you are serving as board president, you may be in the position to receive information first that the other trustees don't know, but only simply for the sake of logistics, process, and having things move along. But eventually, all 5 trustees will receive the same information. It just may be a timing issue. Does that, would you agree with that as former presidents? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But I would think, again, we will all receive the same information. You may get a different answer if you've asked a different question, but again, we're all receiving the same information, particularly as it pertains to an agenda item. So, does that sound, everybody comfortable with that? Okay. And then the last, I think there's just one more, number 30. There is a good relationship between how long the board spends on an agenda item and the importance of the item. And we have a 2-2-1 on that. And, you know, I
can speak on behalf.
Go ahead.
So similar to last year, I'm the one with the not sure.
Okay.
And the reason being with this one is because I think it's an irrelevant question in the sense of I think that as a board members, whatever comes our way is what we spend time on. You know what I mean? So I don't think that anything really is more important than the other as far as the time that we spent. So
Okay.
that's basically why I say not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that even there's going to be issues that come before the board which may not be highly important in the great scheme of things, but they do require a lot of discussion for us to make a decision.
Okay, great.
And I think we have to discuss until we come to an agreement. And I think there shouldn't be a limit or an expectation that we don't spend time on issues that are lesser importance.
I would agree with that. Okay. Anybody else? Any other further comments or questions? No? Okay. I think on number 42, the board has an effective process to review, revise, and adopt policies. You know, we had one less often on that. And I only think that and I don't know if you know specifically who may have said that, but that may have been me as somebody who even sat on the policy committee, because we haven't met a lot as a policy committee. So I think that I think we know that we need to kind of regroup that committee and sit down and take our time with the policies. It would be great to get our policies back up on the website and get those back so that they're easily accessible for everybody, rather than taxing staff's time with having to find them and send them to people as needed. Unless somebody else has any thoughts about their answer for that question. No?
I just wanted to state that we can always get better at this as far as policies. And
Yeah.
I think for me, it was kind of the, I think just the process to review, revise, and adopt. I think it's exactly what you said. It's like it didn't seem like things were moving very quickly with policies this year, but I think it was just the way that this last year was. So I just think that we can get better at this.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and that brings up a question for me when we're looking at reviewing policy, like at the end of last school year, how we added an AR to some board policy around hate-motivated behavior. So when would be an opportunity to review the new AR and just...
Except for ARs are not board.
Okay.
They're not under board purview. It's an administrative regulation.
Okay.
So that is an admin role.
Okay.
We only look at board policy. So an AR will...
Though attached to the board policy.
Yeah, we can
about
certainly
it.
look at that, and
Okay.
we can, we're not denied, but
Yeah.
it's up to everybody else to put it into practice. And that's what the AR does.
Got
And
it.
we can look at them. We don't vote on them.
Okay.
We only vote and approve, we review and approve board policy only.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, ARs, we will see ARs. They'll be attached to an agenda item.
Uh-huh.
But you'll notice that when the motion comes up, it'll be just for the board policy.
Okay. So then, while I do understand that it's being put into practice, how do we as a board, since we've spent time discussing adding an AR to a board policy, how do we then request a review of a new AR? I mean, this is a brand new one.
Right.
So how do we monitor the success of that?
So it would be giving me direction to
Yeah.
Okay, just
Right.
give direction and,
Yeah, I think when
Okay,
it's time,
perfect.
that's something that we can, I do believe in one of our, maybe the LCAP month, when there's like an equity, there's always I think there's going to be
Right.
an opportunity for those reviews, and we can simply ask that get attached to the agenda, and maybe a discussion item.
Great.
And it might naturally fall onto an agenda item as well, the board policy with the AR attached to it.
great.
But by all means, that's something you can certainly ask the superintendent to, you have access to that AR to review it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I just want to say that I agree with Trustee Simon on this one, because sometimes the AR, in some instances, has the meat, it's the kind of the meat of the policy. And so it's I think it's important to be able to review the AR.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, Mr. Aurelio, we'll give you direction when that is needed, okay?
Sounds good.
And then I think, let's see, there was another one regarding board policy on 51, but we kind of just lumped that discussion in with that, I feel, unless anybody feels differently. And really, there's no other not sures under community leadership. We have there's nothing that seems that seems remarkable, that requires, we always have on 57, if it's the same one every year, that that we always feel like, do we actually do that? But, that's I think, in giving the direction to the superintendent and to other, that eventually then goes to other administrators, that, everybody's talking to people at the state level, the county level, on a regular basis. So, we're not going to, Sacramento and standing on the House floor, if you will, but that's not necessarily what I think is expected of us
But
either.
organizations like CSBA.
Yes,
that
exactly.
advocate.
Okay. Anything further on that, anybody? Okay.
I'm just wondering, since it's a question we get hung up on every year, would it be useful to inform CSBA that maybe it's not really a pertinent question for many boards? I mean, it's if you're elected to a local board, it doesn't oblige you to be advocating at the national level for education. I mean, of course, it's nice if you have the time.
Yeah.
But
In some districts, what that can look like too is resolutions that the board passes encouraging or signing letters from the board that go to
I see.
the Senate.
Oh, I
Okay.
see.
So there is ways for
Okay.
the board
Okay.
to agree to draft a letter, let's say, to Senator Dodd about district of choice. That
Okay.
would be a way to advocate.
I see.
Okay.
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 All right, that makes sense. Okay, well, I feel like that is, unless you have further need for questions or more discussion, I think we can conclude that item. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to fill it out. Appreciate it. Okay, is there any, I was probably supposed to ask for public comment prior to, my apologies. Is there any public comment from anybody present or via Zoom? A little bit backwards on that, my apologies. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, thank you again. Well, okay, now we're on to item 10D. So this is accepting the letter of resignation from Julio Olguin. And I'm going to ask Mr. Aurelio to speak, please, first.
Do we want public comment first? on this one?
We can go to public comment first, if you'd like. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item?
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right, Mr. Aurelio.
Well, it is a sad day indeed that we are accepting the resignation of Julio Olguin. I know we're about to release do a press release tomorrow, and you'll see my gushing quote for you. But I'm really proud to have spent. It's a short amount of time, but be here, and that you were part of the team that chose me to come to this district, and I hope that I make you proud that you not only chose me, but it chose a Latino male to come lead St. Helena Unified. And I know you'll be missed, but you're not going very far. And I will see you on I believe you might still be on the Monrovia committee wearing a different hat. So I will definitely be seeing you and, of course, your children who attend our schools. So we will put you to work in other ways.
Trustees. I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to say some words to our fellow trustee. So please feel free to start on, yeah, we can.
I just wanted to say that you are going to be so missed, and I very much appreciate your support from the very start. And I'm so glad I got to know you, and I'm so glad that you will still be committed as soccer coach at the RLS. And you said you'd be on some committees, so I'm not gonna. No pressure, no pressure. But Julio, you are outstanding. You are calm, and you have a ton of grace and professionalism at the dais. And I only wish good things for you and your wife and your family. And it's wonderful getting to know you.
Julio, I am so glad that we chose you when we selected you to fill a vacancy. You have just really been such a great asset to the board, and we can always count on you to be calm and thoughtful, and just well, I don't even know. I know that it's exciting to move to a new house. I dream of it constantly, and I know that you're going to be very happy, but we're really going to miss you on the board. You served, you were always here, you were always prepared, you were always really here for students too, and everyone knew that. Everyone in our community knows that, so thank you. But we'll see you around.
Ditto.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm completely
stole
kidding.
my line.
I know. You could use it still. I did prepare something because I just didn't want to be rambling around on my words. Trustee Olguin, thank you for your dedication and leadership the last 5 years. You have always put student achievement and success in the forefront of every decision that you have made in the work that you do. I will miss your positive outlook, your sense of humor, your quiet confidence, and your passion, and most importantly, your passion for serving students. I've had the privilege of working with you not only as a trustee, but also as one of the directors of the Santolina Preschool for All. In both positions, your service to the children and family in Santolina is amazing and always heartwarming because you always give 100% of yourself and you always ask, what more can we do? Our board has been so fortunate to have you as part of our governor's team, and I'm so thankful for your service and your time. You will definitely be missed. Thank you for everything that you have done for our students in our district. Thank you.
Julio, of course, ditto is not really inappropriate at this point, but, I think one of the things that Maria, she honed in on as well is that, it was a clear choice when you applied for the position. It was the right fit for our district for a lot of different reasons to have your presence on this board, and it has served us well to have your perspective. And as has also been noted, calm, cool, and collected is your MO, and it shows, and it's very respected. Your meticulous notes that you bring to a meeting, I'm in envy of. I think it's great because your preparation is fantastic. You take the time that you need to prepare to come to a meeting, and you will be missed. And I know that you will be missed and we hope to see you in any kind of capacity that you want to stay attached to Santolina Unified. And Preschool for All will continue to be lucky to have you because that work there is amazing. So thank you, and we wish you all the best. And don't be a stranger. And I do have, this is like your own Yelp review. You have 5 stars here. So on behalf of Santolina Unified, I would like to present this to you for your recognition of the years of service. And then I have one other thing too. So this is the really great thing. Yeah. You're gonna love this. You gotta look at it.
You need to explain.
So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you. Am I right? It's a bag of flaming hot Cheetos, and it's an inside joke, so. Yes, of course.
Thanks for all the well wishes. I actually wrote something down, but I didn't really prepare for this moment. And to be honest, it feels surreal being here. Obviously, it's the last meeting or the last time I'll be here at the dais. But I just really wanted to just extend my thanks to each and every one of you guys, from the trustees that are here before us, but also the trustees that I've worked with in the past. Superintendent Aurelio, very excited and happy that he's here, but also want to say thank you to Mary Lou, because she was also a big part of my stint here as a school board trustee, and she was actually one of the people that encouraged me to take the position, along with Erica Madrigal. And all the rest of the staff, it's just, I want to say thank you to the community for giving me the opportunity. It's a position that I feel like I grew into, and I didn't do that on my own. It was a lot of people supporting me and helping me, and so I've learned over the 5 years, I've learned so much more about the education in our district, and most of all, just how supported our students and families are. So, I mean, on that note, I just really leave here, obviously sad, but also excited, because I know that we have such a great team, and like Superintendent Ruben mentioned, like as a trustee group, like we hired him, and I think that he's the right person for that position, and so I'm very excited just to see what will continue to improve here in the district. And so again, I just want to say thank you to all the teachers and all the students, and I mean, again, my wish is just that I hopefully made a difference here, and like I said, I continue to be in the community and want to continue to help students and families. So I just want to say thank you to everyone.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to accept the letter of resignation from Mr. Julio Olguin as presented?
If we don't accept it, what
I
does
know.
that mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. No.
Yeah, I know. Somebody has to be brave and put that motion forward, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you so much, Julio. Okay, on to 10E is the review of the superintendent's subcommittee assignments for the 22-23 school year. Let's see. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item via in person or on Zoom?
And if there's no comment,
Yes.
just give a brief explanation, because there is a change in the committee lists and structures, and I want to just point those out. The chart that has the red is the previous committee structure, and for the 22-23 school year, we are doing some streamlining of our committees, and what you'll notice is we have number 5 there, the student equity and belonging, and we are combining the equity work, but also some of the wellness and school climate, because they do go hand in hand in ensuring that our students feel like they belong. It's a really important key piece. I also want to note that we do have some vacancies as well on the committee structure.
Great. Thank you. Trustees, any questions before we discuss? One of the things that I wanted to talk with everybody at this point is with the proposed changes of the committees, which I think makes sense. It sounds that we're still covering the basis of the committee work that we do. At this point, we have at least one trustee on every committee. We know in a couple of months' time we're going to be having new members, and I think we would be okay with at least the presence of one trustee until we get to a point and we have new trustees, and then we assign committees at that point. I don't know how everybody feels about it. We don't have to do that, but that was just a thought, because at least there is a board member present at all the committees as it stands now. And I don't know, I want to hear your thoughts or comments. And
No, I think that's great, because it's, we just want to wait till after November, and then we can do it one time, and then we're all in.
right, okay,
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. Yes.
okay. Maria, Laura?
I did have some notes on just the Monrovia group, because actually the reason that it was structured that way was because Julio was always there representing Preschool for All. And so I don't know if there's a point in having 2 members on Monrovia group, because it's really the board president that
Right.
speaks for the board.
Right.
And maybe we could have it, what would make sense going forward, since Julio is still going to be there, but not as a board member. If the president can't attend, the vice president or a representative would fill
Sure.
in. That would be my suggestion
Right.
on that on that committee only, but I'm open to anyone else's comments.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I actually know that we did that a couple of times when I wasn't able to make it. Trustee Olguin kind of wore 2 hats as the vice president, and he was there Preschool for All. But I think that makes sense to me. And I think that when we go to reassign these or assign these or renew renew who serves on it, that's a time to have that discussion as well. But I think that's, I think the Monrovia group is a really interesting group, but you're right. It is kind of it's the people who serve in their heads of their organizations, right? That come. So it makes sense that it would be the role of the president, because that's the person that would then report to the board. So I agree with that.
Yeah, that's
Okay. Okay. So as it stands right now, then we'll just hold off and reassign,
I do have one question,
Sure.
President Pelosi. So as we combined 2 committees, we combined the Curriculum, Technology, and Innovation with the LCAP. That would then make 3 trustees on
Okay.
that. So perhaps we can make a change there.
yes.
I have some ideas.
Okay.
Maybe this can
Yeah.
quickly fix that. So with the board policy in place with LCAP, since there's 3 on the so I could put myself, actually this changes because now we're gonna have 1 member.
I mean,
So-
it's okay to have 2. I'm just saying, at least we
Yeah.
have coverage. I didn't want to necessarily go through a whole entire reassignment process right now, knowing that we're going to have to do that again perhaps in a couple of months' time.
Well, since student equity and belonging doesn't have a trustee representative, I'm happy to participate at that committee at this time. Am I reading that correctly? We've got our student equity and belonging and no trustee?
So we're combining 2.
Oh,
So
Yes, you
wellness
did
and
say
school
that.
climate, that was Kerr and Olguin.
got it.
They're being folded into equity and belonging.
Oh, and that's why I recall, okay, with trustee Olguin leaving, I offered to.
Yeah, it
But
would be
now we don't
you
need to
and,
do that because we just need 1 for now.
well, but it could still be you and Jeannie. I mean,
Okay.
technically, see, it says Kerr and Simon next to where it's striked out.
Yes.
That committee's folding into that. So technically, the 2 of you would just fold into that new committee.
Okay, and I'd like to participate
Perfect.
on that committee.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So I think we have coverage then, Erica, correct? Okay. And then we'll revisit this back in December. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 11A, which is under report on the 2022-23 LCAP monthly presentation. Mr. Heller, please.
Good evening. Let me get resettled here. So the board and the community are aware that we're in year 2 of a 3-year LCAP, which was revised and approved in June of last year. And the district goals have 4 areas of focus of achievement, equity, well-being, and engagement. And as a critical component of sharing progress in these areas, district staff will be modifying presentations this year to focus on district work and equity and support for our duplicated populations as defined by the LCAP. And in November, we will have school spotlights that will begin sharing the work at each of the school sites starting in November, as I mentioned, December, January, and February on each of those 4 goals. Also within the structure of the LCAP, principals will develop a single plan for student achievement which will align with the LCAP goals, and we will bring that forward. And we're striving for October, but potentially in November to have that approved. And so we will also conduct a study session in June to review the goals and the progress within those single plans for student achievement. We're also shooting and hoping to bring back our student data presentation in the month of January, as you mentioned, with new governing board members. It would make sense to reorient them and share the data, not only with the new board, but our community as well. We haven't done this in probably 3 or 4 years since the pandemic, and while the data will not have really well-developed cohorts to look at trends over time, it is a start from where we have collected data in the past year using measures of academic performance and such, that we're able to start looking at trends and data points for the future. So I wanted to point that out. That will occur in January at a date that's undefined at this point. So all of this work will culminate in March and April, where we will collect feedback from our stakeholders, and then that will help inform how we revise the LCAP for a draft presentation in May, and hopefully an approval in June for year 3 of the LCAP for the following year. Any questions that I can answer about the monthly presentations?
I'm going to ask for public comment actually first. Anyone present who wishes to publicly comment, or via Zoom, please? No? Okay. Trustees, any questions for Mr. Heller?
No, I don't. No, this looks great. This looks good.
Okay, thank you so much. 11B is the written report on the 2022 summer school program. I would like to remind the board that this is a written report. Is there anybody present or via Zoom who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, any questions?
I have a comment. I'd just like to thank all of our staff who spent their summers with our students. And I really enjoyed, I have to say, I really enjoyed the report back from the teachers themselves as to a more personalized explanation of the events that happened over the summer with their students, how they were able to work more efficiently in some ways and have some real success. And I'm really happy that we saw a lot of good credit recovery at the high school.
Great. Yeah.
I also wanted to highlight, or I'll say ditto for my last answer to everything, but no, specifically also to the other organizations that we're supporting as well. I think they also were a part of the helping out with the Boys and Girls Club and all the different offerings that they had from our local organizations. I wanted to say thank you to them as well.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciated the report and a little snapshot of the things that they did with the students. With the district-wide special ed extended school year program, I wanted to thank them for including the community-based instruction component, so not just the math and reading and writing, where they taught the students community and personal safety skills, which are always so important, and also provided field trips for them to the library, the farmer's market, and the park. At the RLS, I appreciated that they did some project-based instruction where they did the lemonade stand with the students. They did the math, the planning, the making of the lemonade. I mean, to really make it a fun project in the summer, they made ice cream and had instruction around that. So I love how they got creative and made it fun for kids to be at school in the summer. So again, a huge thank you to our teachers who worked this summer to help these students flourish.
Those were my notes as well. And thank you, Mary Ellen, for your time putting that together. The reflections were great to have as well. I had one question about on the high school. I saw that we did offer integrated 2 and 3 credit recovery, I believe, correct? But we did not have anybody who actually participated in those in math recovery. Did we? I didn't see it in the breakdown of the.
No, they had the opportunity if they wanted to through Apex, but they did
Right.
not.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to clarify. Okay, Perfect. Thank you so much, Mary. Trustees, any other questions? Comments? Okay, great. Okay, 11C is the written report on the 2022 professional development calendar. This is also a written report. Is there any public comment via Zoom or anyone present on this agenda item? No? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this item? Questions, comments, or?
I don't have any questions, but I am thankful for the information. This looks great. Yeah, it looks really interesting.
I did have a comment because last year we did have a couple of staff development days were used for as Wellness Wednesdays, and that was a really successful choice for our staff, and I'm just wondering if something will continue on like that.
Yes. Hang on a second. I don't have a green light. I didn't know if I was on or not. So you may recall at the beginning of the year, we brought back the academic calendars to be revised to include one additional vertical articulation day in December. And that was at the request and through the negotiation process with SHTA and President Farrell to include a VA day that would allow us a VA day opportunity in November to conduct that Wellness Wednesday activity. So that's our plan.
Erica, could you scroll down a little bit further, please? I was kind of wanting an example of, like, September 7th says district initiative. Is there an example of this you could give me of what that would be?
Well, a district initiative means it's something that impacts all the school sites.
Okay,
So
okay.
it's something that we're working on as a collective group.
Okay.
And this particular one will be focused on on our West Ed dealing with gradual release of responsibility in the classroom.
Okay.
So it's kind of bringing us back pre-pandemic to where we were going in the first place.
Okay, great. And I guess the same thing when it says site-specific, then we're allowing the sites to just determine what their PD will be.
Correct.
Okay, great. Just wanted to clarify. Okay, trustees, any other questions, comments? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to take a brief break here we'll give us about 5 to 7 minutes. Carolyn, I'm sure you have a full night ahead with schoolwork perhaps, so thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a month, if not sooner. Okay.
Before business operations takes over. I heard it today. That's why I remember. I was there.
Okay, thank you for staying with us this evening. We're going to reconvene now and start with item 12A, which is the facilities update. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Andy Stubbs to take it from here, please.
Thank you. And so these are the topics that we'll be covering this evening. And I do have Mr. John Delana here. He's our construction consultant from Greystone West. Thank you for being here, John, and he can help to fill in any technical questions that the board may have. And then additionally, we also have Joe Perez, our Director of Facilities and Aquatics, who's with us online.
Okay.
And so these are some examples of some of the summer projects that we completed this year. And you'll see there's a picture of some outdoor play equipment that we installed over at the primary school. And I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank our custodial and maintenance and grounds staff for all their hard work this summer. With regard to a pool update, we are still waiting to learn whether or not we can either repair or we need to replace the main pump. Hopefully we should hear on that matter any day now, and we have been treating the pool water in the meantime to abate mosquitoes and to maintain the pool water at a certain level. That reduction in chemicals has caused the pool to have kind of a green color to it, which was then further exacerbated by the recent rain. But we have since treated that water, and that should be improving the color of the color. And we're doing that also in preparation to replace the pool pump once we get it back. And we're hopeful that we will be able to repair it. I'm planning to also ask the board to approve approval of a new pump because that can take 12 weeks to arrive. And so we'll want to have that on hand in the event that the repaired pump goes out again. Then it'll be a quick swap. Meanwhile, just in reevaluating when we should replace the liner, we've looked at conditions a little bit more and talked with folks at the city and realized that really, in consideration of the ongoing drought conditions, it would be best if we just delayed that replacement for another year. And I think that would be the appropriate thing to do. And then at that time, we have all of our procedures and plans in place to donate the recycled water to the community. And the pool liner is still under warranty. Once we have to replace it outside of warranty many years from now, these are the approximate costs, not including the escalation factor for the out year. So one positive thing is that the cost for the pool liner is dropping due to some circumstances with the material, and so it's not quite as expensive as we were anticipating about a year ago to replace the pool liner once it's out of warranty. And the board has approved building up a set-aside for a replacement of the pool liner and the turf replacement at the high school and the eventual turf replacement at RLS. And so to date, we have built up approximately $750,000 for these things. And so we are going to want to look at replacing the turf over the football field pretty soon. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation as well. And so for the rest of the presentation, I'd like to talk primarily about all of our deferred maintenance projects. And so this gives you a little bit of history around looking at larger deferred maintenance projects. And of course, the board has recently almost concluded a $60 million bond program in which we built the Performing Arts Center, renovated the pool, the sports fields, the tennis courts, had a large technology infrastructure project. And so that's some of the work that we've accomplished, and I'll update the summary document that we have and present that to the board at a later date. And then additionally, we've identified several large, high-priority facilities projects that are more of the deferred maintenance nature that we want to talk about this evening. Some years ago, the board commissioned some site assessments for each building, and they go into great detail regarding when things should be replaced, everything from the lighting ballasts to painting the walls and replacing the flooring. And so our staff refers to these site assessments every year to determine what steps we need to take next for some of that smaller repair and routine maintenance work. And then in addition, we have identified what has become a rather large deferred maintenance project list, which I would like to take a look at now, Erica, if we could.
Which file, Andy?
It would be the one that says facilities project list there. Yep, that's the one. Thank you. And then if we can scroll all the way up to the top. So the first two projects are the most urgent. We'll be talking about those next, and that is considering approval of an increased budget for the RLS track and field project, and then also an urgent roof repair here at the high school. The rest of the projects on the list are grouped by year, and so we're looking at, I believe, 5 years worth of construction projects, and they're grouped, ranked in order of priority based on our maintenance staff and what we think we need to tackle next. And you'll also see a series of columns with check marks in them. Those are different funding sources that we think that we can use for these different projects. And so we can do all the projects on this list. It's just a matter of using our funding efficiently and applying for state funding and grants and so forth whenever we can, and staging it out so that we can use reserves appropriately to get the work done. And so the next step with regard to this list will be taking it to our Business Operations Committee to review and provide input about the prioritization. And then after that, we will take this list starting with the projects that we're planning for next summer to our consultants with Greystone West and Associates so that they can provide us with updated scopes and budgets, because we do have some scopes and budgets for some of the larger projects, but with the rising cost of everything now, those budget amounts are outdated. And so then we will bring those projects individually back to the board for consideration of approval with a very specific funding plan. And so then if we can go back to the presentation. And so I just want to talk a little bit about the different funding sources that we have. So the first few that you'll see are district accounts that we have that have different purposes. And so the first two, routine restricted maintenance and deferred maintenance, the board makes a contribution to those accounts every year. And usually we use those for smaller projects like replacing flooring and doing painting and things like that, and smaller maintenance work. The next one, developer fees. We collect approximately $150,000 to $200,000 a year in developer fees. That's for residential and commercial construction. And this past year, we actually took in about $329,000 in developer fees, and that was mainly due to all the fire rebuilds and so forth. And in looking at some of our fencing needs actually around our fields most recently, I think it'll be an appropriate use of some of those additional developer fees that we collected to redo some of the fencing to help to enhance safety and deter trespassers and so forth. And so I'll be bringing a proposal for that to the board at a subsequent meeting. We still have approximately $383,000 in our Measure B and Measure C bond program account, which would be Fund 21, and that is currently earmarked for technology infrastructure. And we have a few projects at the very top of the list, replacing our security fire alarm systems, our paging systems, and our clock systems, and we really need to prioritize those dollars for those projects. And then we have district reserves, of course. We do have some reserve in our developer fees. As you can see there, the figure in the purple, the 1.6 million, and we do have some reserves in our deferred maintenance account, as well as those ongoing annual budgets for the smaller items. And then in addition, we also have reserves, of course, in the general fund, in Fund 17, our special reserve, and then Fund 40, our special reserve for capital outlay. And so those dollars, too, are available for using towards projects. And then we have two pots of state funding that we can apply for. We can apply for state facility hardship funding when it's a project that is an imminent health or safety concern. We were able to do that with the Vintage Hall roof, and then also years ago with the old Performing Arts building. And then we can possibly qualify for 40 to 50% of costs for projects under that program, and it has a relatively quick turnaround of about 4 to 6 months. We can also apply for state modernization funding, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in subsequent slides. And then there's also a variety of other state and federal grants for some of the projects that we're looking at. For example, E-rate can support maybe our technology-related projects. Also, there's CalShape funding for HVAC projects, and I actually just completed a little bit of paperwork today to get us in the queue potentially for some of that funding. And then certainly we can apply for grants to replace our diesel buses with electric, and there are also grants to provide the infrastructure support for that too. And then we have been working with a business operations committee to bring back the idea of putting out an RFQ for energy services consulting, so that we can identify perhaps projects such as solar and LED lighting and HVAC, battery storage and the like. And for those types of projects, we may be looking at possibly some financing and debt service. And so we will put out an RFQ for a third-party independent energy consultant, and that consultant will help us identify projects where, like this example here, perhaps we are spending a certain amount of money on debt service each year, but then we're realizing general fund savings from reduced energy bills, and that covers the cost of the debt service. A little bit more on modernization funding. This is funding for which school districts go through a process to determine a certain degree of eligibility to receive the state funding, which state funding for renovation and modernization, which is funded through state bonds. And so we will be eligible to receive for the RLS track and field project, for example, if we submit we can submit an application to kind of draw upon our eligibility, if you will, as early as August 2024. And so what that means is if we get in a queue, and then if the application is approved, then we can get perhaps up to $2.5 million based on that project, which we can then use towards other projects. But we won't see this revenue for quite a few years, just because of the cycle and how long it takes to become eligible and then have the application approved. So that's where the funding becomes a little strategic. So we would be applying for modernization funding for some of our projects like this, and possibly for the high school roof renovation if we can't qualify for hardship funding for that. So it gets to be a little bit like a little Sudoku kind of puzzle to determine the best funding plan. So I want to spend the rest of my time talking about two very urgent projects. And so the first would be roof repairs here on Building 3, which goes over the 200 wing in particular. And we've been trying for several years now to address conditions on that roof, and we've had several consultants looking at it, and we've tried small-scale repairs to address some of the leaks, but none of that has worked due to the structure of the building, the way it was designed, and also the roof. And Mr. Delana can certainly answer any technical questions you might have about that. Erica, could you assist me with clicking on the video? And I'd like to thank Mr. Cinto, who took this video for me some time ago.
I don't have access to that video.
Okay, I'll provide the oral narrative of the video. It shows the roof with severe leaking conditions and buckets underneath trying to capture the water. Let's see, I don't think it's letting me advance to the next slide. Oh, there we go. So this slide here shows this segment of the roof that needs to be replaced. And so the roof replacement, as you can see, is in the red, and then we would be doing some overlay where the yellow is, and then concrete tile repairs where the green is. I think the pictures, my pictures, there they go. So the next couple of slides show the conditions of that leak. So fortunately, we do have a funding plan for this particular project. We have ESSER 3 funding that we can use, and ESSER 3 funding is probably the least restricted of some of the one-time restricted funding that we've received from related to COVID. And we've received quite a few pots of one-time restricted money that are helping us to address any and all instructional needs that we've identified. And so part of our ESSER 3 plan that the board may recall from quite some time ago when it was approved is that if we don't need those dollars for other things, we can use them for the purposes that you see kind of in the third note there, where it describes maintaining healthy facilities, which could include roofs and so forth. And so we've been checking with our auditors and confirmed that we can use these funding for this roof replacement project. So that will be the intent there. We will certainly look at and determine if we can apply for facility hardship funding, which I don't know that it will be eligible for that, but we can certainly apply for that modernization funding and then potentially get about half the costs reimbursed in subsequent years that we can then use for other projects later on. The next most urgent project that we have actually has already been board approved, and that would be the track and field renovation project which the board approved back in December 2021. And the total budget at the time was $4.3 million, with a commitment on the part of a community member to kind of spearhead raising approximately $1 million in donations towards the project, and then with a plan to use some general fund reserves towards the remaining $3.3 million in costs. Our project consultants from Greystone West gave us the original scope and budget for the project, and then very quickly, world circumstances impacted the cost of petroleum and also materials availability and labor. And so I received a call early in the summer indicating that our project costs were going up by about $1.4 million. So we froze work on the project. And as you can see here, it's not just petroleum related to the grading and the earthwork, but also there's petroleum in some of the materials that we're using, for example, on the rubberized track. And so I quickly evaluated all of our different funding sources, and around the same time, the enacted state budget included some one-time restricted funding called Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. And in the governor's May proposal, this was supposed to be one-time money with no real strings attached. So when we learned about that, then the plan was immediately to potentially apply it to this project increase. Then with the final enacted state budget, the money did have some strings to it, but then in working with our auditors and the representatives from the Napa County Office of Education, we learned that we could actually assign some regular general fund expenses to this Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, thus freeing up some general fund money that we may then apply to this project. And so I have verification from both of those sources that we may do that. In addition, we're also slated to receive some property tax backfill funding associated with the past wildfires. And I don't know what the amount of that will be, but that was also included for districts impacted by the wildfires in the governor's budget. And then the plan would be that if there were any remaining balance, we would go back to our Fund 40, our special reserve for capital outlay, to backfill any remaining balance there. So the next steps, following your questions and discussion about our facilities presentation, later this evening, you'll be asked to review and consider approval of the budget increase for the RLS track and field project, as well as the scope and budget for the high school roof replacement project. And then also you'll be asked actually to support us negotiating contracts with a couple of architectural firms that will help us with some of our smaller projects. We wanted to establish kind of a small pool of architects that we could work with, especially for things like our roof projects that are coming down the pike. And we'll talk more about that later this evening. And then we've already talked about some of the next steps. We'll bring the list to the Business Operations Committee and work with our consultants to further develop those scopes and budgets. Release the RFP for the energy services consultant, continue to look at creative financing for all of these different projects, and then bring them back to the board. The summer projects for next year, bring those back to the board for consideration of approval. And so that was a lot, and so I would open it to the board now for questions and discussion.
Thank you so much. Is there any public comment on this agenda item, whether in person or via Zoom? No? Okay. All right, trustees, questions, comments about this agenda item?
For Andy, once we consider the approval of the budget increase for the track, what would be the timeline for the beginning of would it not be until the summer, the beginning of the construction?
Correct, yeah. And construction has been planned for next summer, and we would still be on track, I believe, with summer construction if the board approved that increase this evening.
Okay, and how long would construction take?
I believe the construction timeline goes out till October? 6 months out to December.
Okay, and if we approve it, why couldn't it start soon? Oh, I'm sorry. If we did approve it, why couldn't it begin sooner?
We would need to be able to get it through Division of State Architect. And so we've gone so far as to get schematic drawings, but there will drawings need to get cleaned up, get over to the DSA for their review, and that takes several months.
Yeah.
Okay.
For approval.
Thank you.
Yep.
Laura, if you're not familiar with the Department of State Architects for public school construction, they are what it causes significant delay in any work on public school construction. It's just that was one of my biggest awakenings when I sat on like budget operations, and it really can take up to 6 months, correct, for DSA sometimes to approve things.
It could, and it all depends on their workload. Sometimes they'll sub it out to third parties to do review, which even slows things down further. But essentially, we'll go through, we'll get it submitted to DSA. They'll come back to us with comments or additional work that they want done for ADA purposes, usually.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to get it out to bid. And we'd like to obviously try and get it out to bid as soon as possible, because we're having all kinds of lead time issues with turf and any kind of product right now.
That's very helpful, because I know that families and students are eager to see construction, and for them to understand that we're not dragging our feet. This is
Correct.
the process takes time, and we're doing what we can. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This is for Andy as well. Is there a chance that the cost could go up higher than that? But obviously, yeah. I mean, or is it 5.7, or is it still potentially a little bit? I mean, I know it's hard to look into a crystal ball, but just
That was
timeframe that we're
probably
with?
my very first question when I got
Yeah,
the call
so-
from Mr. Delana.
So yes, there is a chance. Unfortunately, right now everything is so unstable. I know we're trying to get inflation under control. Everything's petroleum driven, especially on a project like this. So from the trucking to the earthwork to the actual product, it's right now we don't know if fuel's going to be at $5 a gallon or 10. So there's a lot right now that's unknown.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, since we're looking at a 6-month timeline of construction, is there going to be any possibility of student use of any of that area when the construction is going on?
Well, and just to clarify too, the construction won't start till next summer and then continue until December. And so, John, I'll turn that one back to you also.
So there would be a small laydown area that the contractor would need for probably on the blacktop area. Other than that, the 3/4 of the blacktop would be open, but the entire field section would be closed for grading and all construction activities.
Anyone else, or?
A high level, different one. So are we using any kind of debt servicing right now? Do we do any of that?
We don't have any other, well, we do have the debt service on our bond, our
Okay,
Measure
so
B
just-
and Measure C bond
okay.
program.
Okay.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's it right now.
Okay, but no other loans out for any type of?
No.
No, I didn't think that we did. Okay, okay. And then, and this is, it's not about the track. So when I was looking at the list of the projects, I don't see anything on there as far as any of our updating on classrooms and stuff, like 21st century classrooms. Now, is that something that we're kind of holding and idling right now, doing any kind of work on that?
That's a really good question. We were able to outfit the elementary school, the primary school with the Promethean boards, and there's been some interest in kind of circling back to some of the flexible furniture discussions that we were having. In particular, we started those with the primary school right before the pandemic, and so actually the plan is to revisit that work and bring that back to the board at some point this year. So we're going to create kind of a new iteration of that, particularly as our property tax projections start to improve.
Okay. And then, and I hear the using the reserves a lot. So are we gonna, is there like a maximum amount that we're gonna be taking out of our reserves to doing the capital improvements, or are we?
The
I
plan.
mean, it makes me feel anxious where all of a sudden it's just like we're using reserves for our expenses. you know?
Right, and that's why we'll be looking at all those different funding sources that we had listed, and we will only, and we're going to take the projects in kind of small groups at a time, addressing the most urgent first, and then putting together the best funding plan that makes sense, that stays away from the reserves as much as possible. But then with a plan to replenish them and just use real caution in using the reserves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have for right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a few things. First of all, thank you. I'm really grateful for this facilities project list because I do think that was something personally that I was looking for when we made that original vote on the RLS track. It was just, I had no idea what was out there in the big greater world of what needed attention. So thank you for that. I also want to thank you for all the creative financing work that you are doing, because that is very impressive work. I mean, that modernization funding, although talk about like moving those hats with the little monkey underneath it, but I mean, it potentially could be 3 to 5 years before you recoup that money, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So I had one question. I didn't know what a mansard roof was.
Well,
Exactly,
unfortunately,
yes.
I'll have to turn that one over to Mr. Delana also.
Okay, so essentially on building 3 roof, we have the flat area, and then you have the area that's kind of like an A-frame as it's framed up, and you have all the concrete tiles that go around.
Okay.
It hides all of your HVAC equipment.
Okay, so is it like a,
It's like a half of an A essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so there is some leaks within that system there. So we're going to pull off, as part of this project, we'll pull off those tiles. We'll try and get some waterproofing done underneath, and then wherever that hits the flat roof, they're going to address that too. So that we think that that's a cause of some of the issues.
is there flashing on a flat roof as well?
There is flashing. Yes.
There is, okay.
Yep.
And is the placement of the HVAC on the roof problematic to that, to that building?
So in the section that we showed in red,
Yeah,
it's a flat section, but it's kind of like a deep well there.
okay,
And there's some HVAC ductwork that actually penetrates through there in various locations.
okay.
And anytime you have any penetrations within a roof, that's kind of increased area to be a leak section.
Sure.
And so we have a bunch in there, and sometimes minimal coverage between the flat section of the roof and where the roof curbs.
Right, okay. And then what happens, well, like when we see the pictures of the inside of the building, of the classrooms, if you will, specifically. So in that budget, are we improving what it looks like on the inside of the classroom?
Not within that budget. We're going to need to probably spend some maintenance dollars to replace some of the ceiling tiles.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, and there'll probably need to be a little bit of attention to. I mean, obviously, you can see where there in the pictures where there's presence of leak. We'll have
Yeah.
to probably scrape that down, make sure that it's got integrity left,
sure,
and then either repaint or maybe replace sections.
okay.
And we can carry an allowance in the project for that, but we're just not going to know until we kind of get into
Until
that.
you get in there, exactly. And then we're also considering replacing the HVACs at the same time. Did I see that in there?
There is a unit up there that does need to be replaced, and then
Okay.
some ductwork that needs to be replaced as well.
Okay, great. And then, all right, sorry, I had just on that project, I apologize, I lost my place here. No, okay, actually, I think that answers the roofing questions on that. Did you have a question on that?
Yeah, just to follow up on the Mansar roofing. So I didn't know what it was either, so I checked it out.
Okay.
And so just your comment on this, because you just never know what you're reading, whether it's true or not.
Mm-hmm.
It said that the Mansar roof is not as waterproof as other roofs, and that it's difficult to repair and not fire resistant.
So in terms of it's waterproofing, there's a cap that goes around the top, and in some locations, just because of overtime and sun and some rust in some areas, you get some separation in there, and then so that it provides a leak point for the water to get down and find its way into the building. So if it's done correctly and maintained, we'll get your 25 years out of it.
Okay.
To 40.
Okay. And as far as the not fire resistant, is that?
It all depends on the rating of the building. I don't know that mansard, that we know for sure that mansard is not fire resistant up to code, but that is a potential for it to be an issue.
Okay. Okay. Andy, I had a question on routine restricted maintenance on slide 9. It says the estimated beginning fund balance as of July 1 was 0. Is that should we be concerned?
That was on mine.
Sorry,
too.
that's a very good question, and no.
Okay.
So the routine restricted maintenance account is one where you're required. So school districts that are bigger than us are required to contribute at least 3%. A school district our size is exempt from that, and so we really only have to contribute what we need to every year, and so we just balance that account out to 0 each year. But that covers our maintenance personnel, it covers small maintenance, it covers equipment repairs and things like that. And so we can maintain a little balance in there, but typically we just do that in Fund 14, the deferred maintenance account.
Okay.
And so with that account, then does that kind of mean that you're just like, you have a budget of say $30,000. I don't even know. And then you're just drawing that down. So that's why it's a zero balance as July 1st. Is that?
Exactly. And in fact, we probably spend about $200,000 a year from that account just on small things like redoing the flooring or changing out the locks and those
Okay.
kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah. So that covers a lot of the small things that we do.
And I suppose if the creative financing options don't play out, for example, if the modernization eligibility proves to be that we're not eligible, then we don't recoup any of those funds. And to Jeannie's point, have we taken the money out of reserves to then fund that? And
Right. I think if we don't want to count on the modernization funding. It's very likely that we will get it because as long as you're maintaining all your eligibility and doing all the things that you have to do to qualify for it, then you're getting into kind of a queue, and the idea is the first in is the first paid. It's just that it takes years to get it back. So I think the approach that we need to take is philosophically, we want to start with any restricted dollars that we can. So if we're looking at an HVAC project, can we get CalShape funding for example, or do we still have one-time COVID funds we want to apply, the most restricted dollars that we can to it first, and then if we're going to, use our reserves if we have to, with that thought to we may not get reimbursed for it because if the state bond dries up and we don't get our application in time or something, there is a chance that it could take even more years for them to pass another state bond for us to then get the modernization funding. So the board may be asked to make a decision about, yes, we think this project is important, so we are willing to commit this much of the reserve to it, knowing that, maybe we need to wait a little longer on some of the other projects that are in the queue.
okay.
So that's why we're kind of approaching the projects in batches, and then also in terms of priority of what's most important.
Okay. And then when I also was, this was just a presentation that was just, inspiring of thoughts and questions. But on the sending out like a proposal for services on the energy consultant, in my recollection, we've done that at least twice already.
Right.
So I feel like now we're spending money again on finding a consultant to come out and tell us. So I would like to see that we kind of find the right fit for our district and stick with it, because we've already been down this path twice.
Right. Well, back in 2016 and then 2019, we paid to have Sage Renewables look at solar, and determined at that time that it wouldn't be very feasible to go out for solar at that time. And then we put out an RFQ right before the pandemic that was really more designed for kind of a design build energy services company to potentially come in and give us an analysis and then also go right into the projects. However, the board voted to cancel that RFQ because we received the proposals back right when the pandemic hit, so we never spent any money on that work.
Right.
However, there's been kind of an interest over the last year on the part of the board and also our school community to revisit the idea, not necessarily just of solar, but of other energy conservation projects as well. And so we spent quite a bit of time with the Business Operations Committee last year looking at, did we want to put out an RFQ that was designed for an design build energy services company, or really get that kind of third-party independent look so we know there's no conflict of interest there. And what we came to was it would be good to, revisit it with a third-party consultant again.
Great. Thank you, Andy. That's a great answer, and I appreciate having that additional information.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you, and thank you very much. But I think that part of it also was just making sure that what our philosophical view is on solar, because I think sometimes that's where it stops, where the views are like, nope, too expensive, not going to pay off at the end, not doing it, type of a thing. So maybe that as a discussion that we should have as well.
Yes, yeah, I think that definitely came into play. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Maria, did you want to say something?
I just would agree that maybe bringing up you know, what the board thinks about solar would be a helpful starting point.
Okay.
I think I'll plan to bring the RFQ back to the board in September for.
Okay, great.
So, and I don't, I just have one, so this might be more a question in a future one coming up about specifically about the roof, just the two options. I had a couple of questions about the options, the option 1 and option 2. So should we bring that up at the next one?
I think this would probably
Right
be
now?
the best time. I
So,
think.
so in layman's term, what is the difference between option 1 and option 2?
So option 1 would be stripping the entire flat section of the roof off and then putting a new system down. Option 2 is putting a roof over the top of what's already there. So you've got a roof there that's been coated. We could just put what they call a recovery board, which basically goes over it's a small board that goes over the existing roof, and then the new TPO thermoplastic material or PVC sheet that goes over the top of it, kind of like with the pool liner kind of thing.
Erica, may we pull up the estimate document?
So you're essentially the difference is essentially the tear off, and then the underlayment that has to go back on.
Is the life of it with option 2 not as much? I mean, is the lifetimes the same as far as the wear on them and things then? Or
You would get the same warranty on that. The difference is when you go to roof that again in 25 years, you're tearing everything off and then having to re-put it down.
So we would have to do option 1 the next time.
Yeah.
Okay. And then and as far as like the portables, what is that? What the portables that would be on? Is that just for the site management?
Yeah, and so what that would be is we would put some portable buildings up for some temporary housing, so to get people students out of those classrooms while we're working over that area. So if it wasn't done during summer, essentially.
Okay.
How long is it usually? What is the process? The length of?
We would be able to get all that done in the summer.
In the summertime.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustees, any other further questions, comments? Okay, I guess we're good then. We'll move on to 13A, review and consideration of approval, Resolution 22-2 regarding declaration of intent to provide preschool scholarship funding.
Thank you.
Sandy Stubbs.
Thank you. And this would be our annual resolution that we have with the Preschool for All to make a contribution. And this year it'll be in the amount of $30,000, which has been the same since, I believe, 2017-18. And we have a process with Preschool for All whereby they provide us with some financial documents which we analyze and then establish the recommended contribution amount each year. And I would recommend that the board approve this resolution.
Great. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I was just going to say that I'm also the executive director, so I'm going to recuse myself on.
Okay. And me as well, as being a director as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Laura, Maria, any questions or no? Okay, great. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-2 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 22-2 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 13B, review and consider approval of a revised budget and funding plan for the RLS track and field replacement project. Ms. Sandy Stubbs, please.
Thank you. And this would be the item that we talked about during the facilities presentation, and I would recommend that the board approve a new budget for the RLS track and field project of $5 $1,731,000 with the funding plan as presented.
Is there anyone present or via Zoom who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, questions, comments about this agenda item? Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. No. I think, Andy, I know we were in the fortunate position to have, community donations towards this. Do we know if any sense if there would be a consideration to increase those donations? Was there a drive, if you will, to see if they could increase those donations?
I did reach out to Mr. Gamble, who had, during a public meeting, indicated that he would kind of take the lead on soliciting more donations, and so he will attempt to spread that word. And then we also placed a small article in the local newspaper not too long ago.
Okay, great, thank you. And, trustees, I know this is a little bit of a hard financial pill to swallow, but in one respect, it's something that's been promised to the students in the community of this community at this time. So it just seems like we're in the unfortunate position of inflation and costs of materials increasing that is out of our control. So, Jeannie,
and I don't think it's going to get any better. I mean,
No.
As we know, construction never decreases. It
Yeah,
always increases.
exactly. Okay. Jeannie, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask her?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
Okay,
thank you.
great. Is there a motion to approve the revised scope and budget for the RLS track and field replacement project as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Item 13C, review and consider approval of a scope of work and funding plan for a roof replacement project at Santolina High School. Ms. Sandy Stubbs again, please.
Thank you. And this is the other urgent project that we talked quite a bit about this evening. And so I would recommend that the board approve the scope and budget for option 2 as presented with the funding plan presented.
Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, any further questions about this agenda item?
I don't have any questions, but I'm similar to what the other trustees is. Thank you very much for all your time on this. I'm very appreciative. And also, I'm really appreciative of the creative funding, looking in different pots of money and finding out sources of the funds. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And it's a timely project. This is only going to get worse. And we certainly don't want to risk any kind of safety issues with a roof that our students and staff sit in. So if Maria.
I just have one, it just came into my mind. I mean, actually, I did know what a mansard roof was, maybe because I went here and I experienced it. But we have other mansard roofs in the district. And how many more are going to be experiencing this same issue?
That's a good question. We do have roofing issues really across the district. At the elementary school I'm thinking of, and RLS definitely. I think we just have a little bit of roofing work on some of the portables at the primary school, but definitely our list includes some additional roof replacements as high priority projects.
Okay. Yeah, and as buildings age, it comes with the territory. So, okay. If there's nothing further, I'll ask for a motion to approve the scope of work and funding plan for the roof replacement project at Santolina High School as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 13D, authorize staff to negotiate contracts with 2 architectural firms to establish an architect pool to provide design services for small projects under $5 million over the next 5 years. Mrs. Andy Stubbs, please.
Thank you. And in particular, to build up an architectural pool that could help us with these roof projects, we did release an RFQ for architectural services and received some submissions and went through a rating and an interview process, and then identified 2 firms with which we were seeking board approval to go and negotiate contracts with, and then we would bring those contracts back to the board for approval, and we would only use those services as needed, and those would be for smaller facility projects under $5 million over the course of the next 5 years to cover some of the projects that you saw on the list during the presentation.
Great. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
So I do have a question. So since we have 2 architectural firms, would we, if we had a project, would we ask them both to give bids on a project and then take the lower bid, or how does that work?
Likely. We will evaluate the contract documents that they present to us, and then make that determination if you know, there's some distinction between the rates that one is charging over another, and we would work with our construction team on selecting the right architect for the right project.
So essentially, these 2 firms become our pool from which to choose from.
Correct.
And based on their proposals, that's where we would not seek any other firms outside of those 2 within the pool.
Correct. Not for smaller projects under
okay.
$5 million,
Okay,
yes.
great. Okay. I just was trying to just wanted to talk it out to make sure I fully understood, so.
And it looks as PBK, that was our architect for RLS and for the high school as well.
Yes. And we worked with Beam Professionals, which is part of PBK on this roof here. So they've kind of merged a little bit. Is that right, John?
Yes, PBK is the parent company to Beam, who's a roof and envelope consultant.
Okay.
And they did a wonderful job for us on this project here, so we're pleased to be able to utilize them again.
Okay. And my sense was that these were 2 firms that focused on public schools. I mean, right? They were primarily school architectural firms.
Correct. And so PBK, of course, has quite a bit of experience with us in particular.
Yeah.
And then also lots of regional experience. And Strata is a newer one that has some local experience within both Sonoma and Napa counties. And we were impressed in particular with the result, with some of the responses around roofing during the interviews that we conducted.
Okay. Okay.
And this is just an off question. Is it PBK WLC? Is that the company?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay. They've gone through a couple different names then. Okay. All right. And then I guess this might be a hypothetical, but what if we don't run the risk of having have selected 2 firms in a pool and neither one of them have the time to take on a project. We haven't hurt, whatever I'm trying to say. We haven't cut off our nose to spite our face kind of thing, because we would always have access at least to these 2.
I think that's a very good question, and these firms responded to this RFQ because they were interested in taking on additional work, and they were interested in taking on small projects like this.
Okay.
And so I have every confidence that for a district our size, 2 in a pool would be great. And I'm also going to defer to John, who has another comment to make.
Yeah, so like Andy stated previously, Strata is a local company, and in the interviews and through the RFP process, they've identified that they've got the bandwidth for projects here.
Okay.
PBK has offices all throughout California. They're a fairly big company, and they have support from Texas too. So
Okay.
they've got a lot of horsepower.
Right. And that was the inclination. I just felt that I needed to ask that at a meeting just to make sure, because you wouldn't really submit a proposal if you didn't think you could deliver. So, okay.
It is a good question.
Okay. Anything else, trustees? Okay. Is there a motion to authorize staff to negotiate contracts with 2 architectural firms to establish an architect pool for small projects as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 13E, review and consider approval of contracts over $25,000. Ms. Andy Stubbs again, please.
Thank you. And the first 2 are essentially just renewals of current services that we have with West Ed and with Aurora Environmental Services. Although I do want to point out that there was quite a bit of an increase for services with Aurora Environmental. And that was due to 3 factors which are listed there. We've requested some additional services from them, and then they've also changed how they are charging for services, and then they've also added an inflation factor as well. So we may need to increase our budget for this type of service a little bit. What we do between reporting periods is we analyze our budget and determine if we can absorb some of the increased costs, and we always build in an inflation factor into our budgets for services as it is. But I do anticipate we will have to increase our budget a little bit, and we'll bring that to the board in the first interim report. And then the third contract would be with Dell Technologies for some replacement employee laptops, and that's just part of our device refresh program, and that's in the current budget. And then finally, we are asking the board to approve the purchase of a new 10-passenger van. On the consent agenda, the board approved surplusing 2 older vans, and we are sorely in need of an additional new functional 10-passenger van, not only for field trips and extracurricular activities, but also for our home-to-school transportation program, because we've gone from 3 full bus routes down to 2 full bus routes, and then also some van transportation, which is definitely more cost effective. But we have quite a few circumstances, especially for students who have individual education plans through special education. We're doing quite a bit of transport of those students in smaller groups, and so having this additional van will really help. And we have learned that with the governor's state enacted budget, there will be some more money for transportation, and so that can potentially offset the cost of purchasing this additional van. And so with that, I would ask the board to consider approval of these 4 contracts over $25,000.
Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions about this agenda item?
I don't.
Just for the passenger van, I know that we're looking into doing electric buses in the future and have an electric charging station. Do you think that when it's time to replace the next van, that we could, it's possible to look at an electric van as well?
I think that's a great comment. I will definitely make a note of that. I think that would be really important to do.
And I'm assuming we don't have any staffing issues for somebody to drive that van, correct? We have the personnel for that?
We do. We've developed a plan for right now, and I anticipate that we will definitely have the staffing for the particular home-to-school transportation that I'm thinking of for this particular van.
Okay.
Specifically, we have a handful of students that come down to us from Spanish Flats and Lake Berryessa, and so this van will be instrumental in helping to ensure that we can provide them with reliable transportation. And then additionally, it is definitely needed for our after-school extracurricular activities and sports.
Okay, great.
Would it be used for the transport of the TK students to the...
Perhaps. We actually have a plan for, currently right now we're using the smaller yellow bus, the V26 bus, to transport those students, and then on Wednesdays we're using the small mini white bus that we purchased last year. So we've been assigning the vehicles that we do have to particular routes. And once we have this van, that will just help to alleviate some of the burden and then definitely support sports and after-school activities.
And I had one other question about the Aurora Environmental Services contract. It's a 3-year contract, and with the substantial increases, if in your creativity and your awesome, always searching and finding great things out there, if you find something better and we want to get out of this contract, what does that cost us?
Well, and that's a good point. I actually asked them for a 1-year agreement because I was a little taken aback by the cost increase myself. And this is actually a group that all of the districts within the North Bay Insurance Schools Authority group, I believe most of us work with this company because they actually give us a discount for being part of that JPA.
Okay.
And so I actually did ask them for a 1-year agreement, but that was going to be pretty exorbitant for 1 year. That cost would go up, and so I decided to go ahead and renew for another 3-year period, and then that would give me some time to maybe put out an RFP for.
Okay. You're already ahead of the game. Yeah. Trustees, any other questions, comments? Okay. I'm going to just give me one moment, please. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the contracts over $25,000 as presented?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr? Aye. Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, 13F is the approve the implementation of a district-wide online payment system for allowable student fees and donations. Guess what? It's you.
Fortunately, I had an afternoon cup of coffee. So for some time now, there's been requests and some interest in having an online payment system so that parents and the community can make donations and pay allowable fees and so forth with a credit card. And so finally we have worked out a plan where we have found a good one that charges reasonable fees. We looked at several of them, and we would like for the board to approve the implementation of this online payment plan. And it will also require setting up a separate bank account to receive district-related fees. And I think that this will help our parents a lot. We will still take checks and cash, but it just provides parents with yet another option for paying things. And it includes all the sorts of fees that you can think about: sports, drama, paying for lost library books, things like that.
Okay. Is there anyone participating via Zoom or present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions, comments?
So just because you said it'll require setting up a new bank account, but would this money all go into the general fund then, or are there different pots? Because would like a club receive money this way? I'm a little bit. Just a little clarification.
Yes, that's a good question. And so fees that are associated with ASB will go into the existing ASB account. And then fees that students are paying for things that are that should go back to the district. So, for example, lost technology or lost library book or something of that nature would come into, this would be a clearing account for those types of payments. In this bank account, we have a resolution coming up on the board agenda for that. And then those funds would be withdrawn and put into the appropriate district account. And if RLS, for example, wants to utilize the online payment system too, then fees collected for their ASB could then go through their ASB account. But yet district fees at RLS could go through the one single new Wells Fargo account, if that makes sense.
Does that make, yeah. And Andy, this is a program that choral, band, and drama, if they sell tickets at a box office for an event, that they would use this same system?
They could do that also. They have the ability to sell tickets And
Okay.
right, currently the drama, if I recall, is using a system that allows the selection of seats and things like that.
Yeah.
But this new system here can do all that also.
Okay, great. All right, that covers
Is
that.
what I'm told from staff.
Okay.
But it looks as though the remitter, though, the one is they're paying the fees, though. We're not paying the fees on that. Is that correct? Is that what I read?
Yes, and the company requires that we choose, and it has to be kind of an all or nothing. So in this case, because parents will still have the option to pay cash or pay a check, we are having the person who's paying the fee pay the transaction fee as well.
Okay.
So that we're not using district funds to pay them.
Okay. Anything? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the implementation of an online payment system for allowable student fees and donations as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. Item G is to review and consider approval of the Resolution 22-4 of opening a bank clearing account for those online payments. Andy, please.
Thank you. And this would be for the one new Wells Fargo account that we would be adding for to receive deposits of district fees and make withdrawals and then deposit into our district accounts.
Is there any, let me try this again. Is there anyone who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? No. Trustees, questions about this? Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-4 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 13H is to review and consider renewal of the MOU between the St. Helena Unified School District and St. Helena Preschool for All. Andy Stubbs, please.
Use your microphone.
This would be the renewal of the Preschool for All MOU, and there have only been two changes. First of all, we removed language that refers to data sharing because Preschool for All does not need that element any longer, and then also we're seeking a 3-year term on this MOU. It's a solid partnership and with consistent practices and communications, and so having a 3-year renewal will just be more efficient. And of course, we can always come back and revise the terms if we need to.
Okay. Is there anyone participating who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? No. Trustees, questions about this agenda item?
I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay.
I will as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the MOU with the St. Helena Preschool for All as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, item 14A is consideration and approval of the collective bargaining agreement, tentative agreement with CSEA Chapter 287 for the period of July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. Mr. Heller.
We'll break up Andy's presentations. She'll be back. The district and CSEA Chapter 287 met several times since April to negotiate a new collective bargaining agreement before you tonight. The agreement contains modifications listed in the tentative agreement to a new 3-year CBA that will extend through June of 2025. This agreement was approved by regional CSEA officers and ratified by their membership on August 9th. So on behalf of the district negotiating team, we want to extend our thanks to President Christina Avina, Vice President David Perry, and Brian Clark for their time and leadership in representing CSEA's interest. We felt it was a very mutual and collaborative process, much like our work with SHTA, and we're happy to present that to you tonight to approve.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, questions, comments on this agenda item? No? Okay. Thank you again to the negotiating team and to CSEA's leadership as well. Is there a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement with CSEA Chapter 287 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 14B, review and request approval, AB 1200, public disclosure documents associated with the meet and confer process between Santolina Unified School District and unrepresentative employee groups. Mr. Heller. Oh, no. Yes? No. Sorry. Hold on. Where am I?
I want Andy to back.
No,
I
it
liked
is
her
stuff.
voice
Sorry.
much better.
My thing was back. It's weird. Andy, please.
Thank you. And the board may recall approving public disclosure documents for our agreements with SHTA and CSEA. And so this evening, the board is asked to review and consider approval of the public disclosure documents associated with the meet and confer process of our unrepresented groups. And so that would be our certificated and classified managers and also our confidential employees. Okay. And so the agenda language provides a good summary of the multi-year projection and the impact of all these increases. And so as anticipated, we do see a rather large budgetary deficit in 22-23 in the most recent multi-year projection, which was from the June budget adoption package. And that's due to the 3% one-time off-schedule salary payment that at this point is then granted to all employees. And then the deficit decreases in the out years because the 3% is then removed and there's just the 1% ongoing. And then we anticipate, of course, seeing some changes with our multi-year projection at the first interim report that will be presented to the board in December.
Okay.
And so with that, I would ask the board to approve these public disclosure documents.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item? No. Okay. Trustees, any questions about this agenda item? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the AB 1200 public disclosure documents associated with the meet and confer process between Santolina Unified School District and unrepresented employee groups as presented? Wow. Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion
Is there
to
a-
approve the AB 1200 public disclosure documents.
Okay, thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 14C, review and consider approval of the 2022-23 salary schedules for certificated classified management and confidential employees. Andy, please.
Thank you. And these would be just the salary schedules for those unrepresented groups, which includes the 1% increase and associated with those public disclosure documents. And the board has already approved the salary schedules for SHTA in conjunction with that TA when it was approved, I think back in June. And then the salary schedules for CSEA along with the TA earlier during this meeting. So now we've got all the salary schedules reflecting these changes that were negotiated.
Right. Great. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? No? Trustees, any questions about this item? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the 2022-23 salary schedules for certificated and classified and confidential employees as presented?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carries. 14D, consideration of approval for consents to teach for the 2022-23 school year. Okay, Chris,
Yep. This is it.
take us there.
All right, finish line. Gonna make this last 25 minutes, I think. All right. Each year, teachers who have adequate background in coursework can be permitted to teach outside of their credential area with their consent. So the 4 that are presented to you tonight have met the criteria, and we ask that you approve them to teach those courses this year. Very simple.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone participating who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? Okay. Trustees, should I talk really slow and see if we can, okay, no, any questions about this agenda item? Okay, all right. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 22-8 through 22-11 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
You can do the adjournment.
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Trustee Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried. 15A is our future agenda items. As Mr. Aurelio commented, we will have our study session on Monday, the 22nd. And then we have our next regular board meeting on September 16th. 6 p.m. is when open session begins. That is our some of our agenda items, I would say. So are there any questions or subjects for future agenda items?
I saw that we do have a policy update. Would it be possible to get a status update on ARs that, along with those policies?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, I think those policies that have the ARs attached to them, you know, is that sufficient for you? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was just based on our conversation earlier.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Aurelio. Okay, 16A is an adjournment. And I'm going to, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Madrigal will conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Simon?
Aye.
Trustee Haug?
Aye.
Trustee Kerr?
Aye.
Vice President Olguin?
Aye.
President Pelosi?
Aye. Motion carried.